Hello guys and gals, and welcome! So, Diablo 4 Beta has been up for a little while, and I've had some time to play around with the Druid. And what Druid did I make you under? I made a Rabies Druid. Why not? I figure, hey, let's make a Rabies Druid. What did I go for skills with the Rabies Druid? Well, first off, I had to get a basic skill, so I did use Claw. And I decided to go with all poison damage. I thought that would be fun, so I went with Claw, Enhanced Claw, and then of course the Fierce Claw, which applies the poison damage. And then down here, I went with the Predatory Instinct, which is 3% crit per tier for close enemies, because I'm a close range fighter. So I get a nice 9% crit from that. I also have 5 points into Shred, specifically because this ability is very nice with the poison damage builds. And I also built the Enhanced Shred, and of course the Raging Shred, which also applies another poison damage effect on the monsters. Then I grabbed 2 points into Earthen Bulwark, and that's just for the defensive cooldown. I do have Blood Howl, but only 1 point into it, because there's really no reason to actually stack points into it. But you do want to grab the Blood Howl. Also increases your attack speed by 15%, because that gives you a very nice boost to your attack speed during that time. And this is all going to be about rotations, so I'm going to show you my rotation here in a little bit. You're also going to grab Rabies, of course, because this is a Rabies build. And you're going to grab the Savage Rabies, which does even more poison damage over 4 seconds. You can also, if you want to, you could change that out for the Natural Rabies. Either one is fine. Then you're going to want to go down to Neurotoxin, and then you're going to want to dump 2 points into Toxic Claws. Now, the reason why you do this is because every single time you hit, and a critical hit is done instead, you are going to end up with another poisoning effect on the monster for each critical strike, which is another reason why y'all ain't going to let me record this video, is ya? That's right, back it up. Which is why you end up going with this passive in the beginning to give yourself the 9% increase. And then on top of that, we usually end up doing nothing in the ultimate tree, which is kind of important because we need those points in other places. Now, for legendary effects, I've just got pretty much everything that I can squeeze into this character. One of the most important ones, however, is the Night Howler aspect, which gives me the Blood Howl increases critical strike chance by 13.5%, which means that when Blood Howl is active, I have a pretty massive crit chance of... where's my crit chance at? Boop, 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 boop. Right here. So crit chance of 8%, right? And I trigger my Blood Howl. And now I have 21.5%. And I get even more than that under various circumstances. So I'm constantly dishing out lots of poison damage via the crits and other sources. I've got other things on, like I've got Lucky Hit, gives me crowd control effects to another enemy. I've got Earthen Bulwark, it lasts for a little bit longer, which helps defensively. Attacking with a basic skill costs increases the damage of your next core skill, which is nice for Shred. And then the armor buff, which is very nice to help keep you alive. Critical strikes give me extra movement speed, which is nice for when I'm in combat because I get lots of crits. I also have the core skills that deal up to 44% more damage based on my Fortify amount, and I do tend to get a pretty decent amount of Fortify. This one is not really important for me. It's just an extra ring that I have on until I find something better. And then I have the 31% increased damage while I have an active barrier, which feeds into the Earthen Bulwark, which feeds into having 1 point into Earthen Bulwark at least so I can spam the barrier. And after it's all said and done, it's actually an extremely powerful build. I can pretty much shred most monsters with ease. The last hit on Shred is an AoE circle attack, which pretty much just hits everything. And let's hop into a dungeon real quick and let's actually play a little bit with my character. And you can also see that I do have 1 point in Cyclone Armor, and that's really because I just had an empty spot, and Cyclone Armor is a passive ability that helps me defensively. So I don't really have to actually use the ability, although sometimes I'll tag it just cause. But it basically provides me with 20% non-physical damage reduction, which does make me a little bit tankier. And that comes from just like a random piece of equipment. I didn't actually put anything in it. I can't remember which piece of equipment that's coming from. Yeah, there it is. But if you have plus the skills on a piece of equipment for something like that, it's actually useful. Cyclone Armor can be useful even if you don't invest in it. All right, so this is what is this? The Path of Blood. So there should be a bunch of monsters up ahead. So our basic rotation involves, number one, building our essence. So you got to do that first. Go ahead and build your essence. And once you have your essence built, what you're going to do is you're going to tag your Howl, your Earthen Bulwark, and you're going to tap your Rabies on something, and you're going to start rending everything. And once you have your basic buffs up, you can see I can pretty much just like rip through most elites with relative ease. And I need to rearrange my buttons. For some reason, they're all out of whack. Oh, hold on a second here. You can rearrange your buttons anytime by opening up the S panel, by the way. And you can like shift things around. So this one is supposed to be there. You're supposed to be there. You're supposed to be there. I don't know how they got all messed up, but I hate it when they get messed up. So your Shred is really your main ability. Rabies is nice, but it's not your main ability. Shred is your main ability for how much poison damage it does. It's an amazing ability as far as the werewolf is concerned, and it hits like everything around you with the third hit. So when you're in a fight like this and you tag your abilities, you can see pretty much everything dies. You don't even have to really even worry about it. Monsters like this that hang back, they're single target. So all you have to do is just come up on them, build a little bit of essence, and start shredding them to death. And the poison pretty much takes care of them on your own. Like, a lot of the times with the Rabies, you can pretty much just tag a target with the Rabies and just move on. And in boss fights, oh my god, he does really good in boss fights. I was actually kind of impressed at how quickly and how well he would just tank the boss fights completely. These conduit shrines are great. Now, one of the main issues with this build, and I actually had theory crafted this build, is that I don't have access to any of the totems. And I had actually theory crafted it with access to the totems. And if I did have access to the totems, this character would be a lot more powerful. So the reason why this character kind of doesn't meet his potential is because this crit ability right here, number one, I would want to cap it. Because I want to make sure that I'm getting as much poison damage as I can with as many critical strikes as I can. But the thing is that inside the spirit panel tree, I believe it's on the wolf here, there are two abilities. One increases your critical strike chance by 5% base, and the other one increases your critical strike damage by 50% or 30% or whatever it is. And then there is another one, I believe it's down in the snake tree, that gives you 3% life return for every critical strike that you do. So the entire idea of this build is to increase your critical strike chance as much as possible, eventually with the idea of having crit strike on pretty much every piece of equipment, so that when you look in your tree here, you know, you look at your crit strike chance and it's like 50% crit strike, and then you use your howl and it goes up to like, you know, like 60 or 70% crit chance, and then you add on like the crit chance that you get from various items and things like that stack it up even higher. And by the time you're done, you're literally like so high that every single attack that you get is a crit. And in general, every single attack that you get would also then therefore be poison damage, which would be added to another target from any source that you make. So it wouldn't just be about Rabies anymore. It's about literally hitting all of the targets that you possibly can with every single attack that you possibly can, dishing out massive amounts of poison damage to all of them. Take this boss right here, which is what? Cold Enchanted. Let me go ahead and build up a little essence on this boy. And what we're going to do is I'm just going to show you what it's like when you have all your cooldowns up. So, Howl, Bulwark, Rabies, and of course he teleports away right in the middle of my combo. And as you can see, I pretty much like 3-shot him. Bye, mister. And it's just really fun playing with these abilities. Tornado will seek up to 5 targets. Wow, that's kind of cool. That'd be interesting for a Tornado Druid. Haven't played around with the Tornado Druid yet. But when you go through this tree, there are just so many fun ways that you can build a character. You could build a character with Hurricane running around you all the time. You can build a freaking tanky bear. I mean, some freaking grizzly raging bears. And we don't even have access to the capstones yet. We don't have access to the boons yet that come from the spirit totems. I tried out a companion wolf, and it was interesting, but one thing I know for sure is that you really can't cap it out. Like right now, it's very difficult to actually cap out the companion wolf because you just don't have enough points and it's too far down the tree. And that's where some of this stuff really comes in as an issue, because like Rabies is so far down the tree that you have to spend so many points into so many various things just to get to Rabies that by the time you get there, you've already wasted the majority of your points on everything else. Same thing for Toxic Claws, which is extremely useful for this particular build. And also, we got the poison enemies take 10% additional crit strike damage. I can't remember if you can actually get both of these. Yeah, you can get both of these. So, like, as a poison druid, as like a rabies druid, as this particular build, I would want to cap this out. I'd want to cap this out. I'd want to cap this out. I would probably also want to cap out my basic, because my basic is doing some pretty serious poison damage. I would probably also want to delve into some of these down here, like... where's the other passives? There was a couple more that were rather interesting for like a poison tree. And like as you go through and you start looking at all these, like there are some really interesting ones that help out with things. Like this one might not seem like it would be a damage one, but like it increases the amount of fortify that you gain from all sources, right? Well, overpower and various other things actually use your fortify to determine how much damage you're going to do. So increasing the amount of fortify that you get could potentially increase your damage over as a whole if you're going down that particular road. So if you're going down a road that has tons of fortify, like damage improvements, then yeah, you're probably going to freaking triple out this thing, because it's going to increase the fortify that you get from all sources by 15%, which is going to also therefore increase the damage that you deal by utilizing fortify amounts. The same thing goes with barriers. So like, for instance, I have this item right here that increases the amount of damage that I dish out when I have an active barrier. So every time I cast Earthen Bulwark, which now lasts for 9 seconds, I get a nice little 31% damage bump for casting Iron Bulwark. And the two effects feed into each other. I get more defensive capability for having Iron Bulwark up, and I also gain more damage for having Iron Bulwark up. So I get to combine all those nice cooldowns together. I get the Blood Howl, which gives me the increased crit. It gives me the increased attack speed. I get the the Earthen Bulwark, which is protecting me and also giving me the additional damage. I get the Rabies, which I can just tag onto one target and let it do its thing. That's the really cool thing about Rabies, is that like you don't have to do anything with Rabies. You just walk into a group of monsters. You maybe tag your abilities first beforehand so you can get the damage bumps, and then you just tag one target with it, and you just walk away. And the monsters will all just infect each other and kill each other. The rabies spreads between all the targets, and they just slowly murder each other. I mean, you can see that one got infected by these guys. These guys won't reinfect him, but literally, like, if you bite somebody with rabies and they just touch another target, like, they just keep spreading it. So it's really just a set it and forget it, like Ronco Rotisserie Grill. Say it with me, guys. Set it and forget it. And then you spend the rest of your time actually using Shred, Claw, and running around, like getting your actual damage on. Because Shred is really where the majority of my poison damage is coming from anyway. Because I'm in there in the thick of it, and then I'm right-clicking with my Shred, and it hits with this nice AoE ability and causes everything to bleed really nicely. And that's not even the rabies. Then I apply the rabies too, and then they're double bleeding. Now, there's obviously builds out there that probably could, beat this. I'm not going to say every single build that I make is the most endgame build. In fact, we're level 25, so all these builds are not endgame builds. I'm actually very interested to see, actually, how these builds would turn out with more skill points. Like what potentially I could do to improve this further. How many more points I would put in here or there. What other secondary skills I would get. I actually have a free slot. This Cyclone Armor slot it's not doing anything. It's just an extra skill that I have put in there. So I have potentially a option open for another skill. And looking at the tree, I'm not really sure which one I would pick. I had been thinking about it, and I was like, maybe I'd grab Lacerate, but I wasn't really too impressed with the way that Lacerate worked. But I also couldn't get to Supreme Lacerate, which has a initial strike is guaranteed to critically strike and deals 150% increased damage. Now, I have my whole character built off of critical strikes, right? So this, the Toxic Claws, would feed into this, right? So that means that because it's going to guarantee that initial strike crits, and also I have extremely high crit chance, it's going to hit, 10 times, and then this is going to stack that poison damage on top of it, so I'm going to be literally getting a whole bunch of poison damage with this ability. And I'm interested to see how it would work out if I could max it out and use it properly. But I tried to get it earlier, and honestly, like, I had to sacrifice way too many points out of Rabies, and I had to sacrifice points out of Toxic Claws, and I really just couldn't make it work while maintaining the build that I was using. So I would need some extra points and a couple extra points here or there to actually figure out whether it would be worthwhile. And then on top of that, no capstones. So, like, I can't get access to any of the capstones, and I would totally want to use some of these capstones. This one right here would just work in so beautifully with my critical strike build, because it's every 6th werewolf skill is going to guarantee a critical strike and has 60% increased damage. So this Toxic Claws, that means that every 6th attack that I do is going to apply my Toxic Claws damage every single time. And then on top of that, I've got really high crit chance anyway, so I'm going to be putting the Toxic Claws on everything that I'm touching. And obviously I would feed into this eventually with like other items that might increase my poison damage, gems in my weapon that give damage over time bonuses, all sorts of things to just like really stack on the poison as much as I possibly can, which would, feed into the entire thing. Anyway, I just thought I'd show you guys my my poison druid, and then also tell you that I think the druid's pretty fun. I think I'm still going to start with a necromancer, but the druid definitely is a very interesting beast of a character, and it looks like you could make a lot of fun builds with it. As always, thanks for watching, and keep watching.